Okay, our grapes are doing great. These are the red Suffolk red is what they're called. We have a row of broccoli that will come out when they get ripe and the grapes get too big anyway. As you can see, there's lots of broccoli. They're all bolting. Need to come out and clip all that off, and maybe some new heads will come out that will be edible. These are flowering. These raspberries aren't quite ripe. Don't think there's any ripe ones. These are the Concord grape. Then we have some peppers and little rows of radishes between the different herbs down there. We have some okra, some fennel, some cantaloupe way down there, and this whole row here is dill for pickling. Our ever-bearing blackberries are blooming. The autumn Britain have bloomed or are blooming. They're a little slower than some. Actually, they're all ready to see. This is the Polana, and the first red raspberries right there. Today's the 20th, I believe, the 20th of April. Our canna lilies have all come up this week. They grow really fast. We just weeded all the cucumbers. Our peppers row. This row is carrots. This row is onions. There might be some onions at the other end of the carrots row. These were just planted a week ago, so a little over a week ago. And they'll be germinating. I see some onions coming up back there at the end. Besides the sets, we planted seeds, and the seeds are starting to germinate. Now these strawberries were planted, bare root strawberries were planted the 23rd of April, and today's the 20th, so almost 2 months, and there we've already picked 10 pounds of ripe strawberries. Look at all the strawberries. There's probably another 5 or 6 pounds, 7 pounds in there. These are red potatoes, row of peas and some onions on the end, and white potatoes, whichever. One of them's red and one of them's white. Some artichokes, some canna lilies. These are the ranch raspberries. We took out half the row because this was all grass. The grass was choking out the raspberries so bad, I finally just took everything out and dug way down and pulled all the roots out. So there's no grass, no raspberries, nothing. We'll let that go like that for a year, make sure nothing comes up there. Oh, I see one grass right there. Get him. We'll go like that, kill all of the plants in there that are obnoxious, and then we might fill this row back in with raspberries. Because it is nice to have raspberries that produce so many raspberries in the first few weeks of the season, and these are like that. They produce a ton in July, and then they don't produce any more the rest of the year. These are our slicer tomatoes. They're all ready reaching the cages. And our blackberries are blooming like crazy. Look at all the blossoms. Wow. Tons of blossoms up and down the row. Lots of new canes coming up here, here, here. The new stock coming up to fruit next year. Back here we cleaned up where the peach trees were so we can plant some pumpkins and squash. The black raspberries are almost ready to ripen. They're past their blooming stage, and you can see we've got little berries, they're just not ripe. But they will be in the next week or so. This is another section where we can just plant corn or pumpkins or squash. And there's 4 rows of corn, but I didn't want to plant all of it at the same time, and Jerry and Jim have been planting the corn, so we have 4 little rows of corn, and they're up 4 inches. And then there's not very much sand left, maybe a little, I'd say a third of this pile, and not very much compost is what I meant to say. The compost pile is almost gone. That was 30 yards 3 years ago. Rhubarb is doing great. These few blackberries always grow right there by the shop. This patch of back blackberries is blooming like crazy. We always get 40 or 50 pounds off this little 10-foot square patch. Look at all the blossoms. Wow. And then, because we're late, we decided to put squash, some more corn, some sunflowers, let's see, cantaloupe, and you know, banana squash. Let me think, all the different butternut squash. We soaked them for 2 days, the seeds, and then we planted them in these starters. And each one of these trays, this tray, for example, is 96 holes. And so there are 2,200 seeds planted, and some of these are really old seeds from 2000, 2009, 1998, 99. I see one germinating. Out of all 2,200 seeds, one is coming up today, and that is, it says corn, peaches and cream. We have a terrible problem with weeds, and we planted corn once and nothing came up, or the bugs ate them all off, and so we planted again, and that's what you saw out there. The 4-inch corn was the second planting. Same with the peas and the beans. The bugs or something ate all the seeds. And the beans were coming up, second planting. These are strawberry starts Jerry's making from the runners. We also have a whole row of paste tomatoes, a whole row of beans. Their second planting is coming up. They should work this time. We shall see. And the paste tomatoes already have tomatoes on them. We've had such a cool spring that every blossom is setting, whereas some years it's so hot that the fruit doesn't set till, you know, later in this first burst of heat that we get. The blossoms don't set, but this year everything is setting. Look at that, there's 3 or 4 tomatoes right there on those Romas. There's 3 or 4 on this plant. These plants are 3 feet tall. These are called paste or Amish paste tomatoes. They'll make a tomato 3 or 4 times the size of the Romas. And these are La Romas, and so they make a tomato twice the size of a regular Roma. All the way down the row. Lots of paste tomatoes this year because we're going to gear up for salsa. I can't wait to pick raspberries.